2013, that was the last time the New Orleans Saints made the playoffs. They had missed the playoffs 3 consecutive years. And heading into 2017, I'm sure I couldn't have been the only one that thought this may very well be the last season for both Sean Payton and Drew Brees in New Orleans. Because on the surface, on paper, you just didn't see a lot of reason to believe that 2017 would be any different than in 2016, 2015, 2014. And the way the season started, with the 0-2 start, it most certainly felt like it was going to be a repeat of previous years and kind of a sad cap to what was a successful run in New Orleans with Sean Payton and Drew Brees. That 0-2 start, you weren't feeling the team. You weren't feeling the buzz, the vibe of them, the aura around them. It felt like they were really struggling to find their identity. Well, at that point in time, that's when they made the Adrian Peterson trade and sent him off to Arizona. And that was the move right there. And it's not Adrian Peterson's fault. It's not anything. It's just, it was the move that seemed to set everything into motion. It was the move where it was really addition by subtraction through no real fault of the player himself. It was just maybe one of those things where it was going for somebody because they're a name and he was never really a fit for you anyways. Why did you really bring him in is more the question. But with getting rid of Adrian Peterson, it just seemed to set everything in motion, specifically with that offense. So many things fit together perfectly. And after that 0-2 start, then all of a sudden, it's an entirely different Saints team. They won 8 straight games after that. Think about that. Starting off 0-2 and then winning your next 8. You put that bad taste out of your mouth 2 months ago by not losing for 2 damn months. They ultimately won 11 of their last 14 games of the season to finish 11-5 and in first in the NFC South. I didn't see this coming. There was nothing before the season to indicate to me that this was coming. So how did it come? How did this season happen for the Saints? Well, I think once you look at that Adrian Peterson trade, it really all started with the running back combination of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. This was the best 1-2 running back combination in the National Football League of 2017. Nobody denies that. I don't think it was close. Mark Ingram, with what he was able to do between the tackles, and frankly, as a little bit of an underrated receiver out of the backfield, and then Alvin Kamara just being that all-around weapon, somebody that could make some big plays happen in the running game. And then when you get him out there in the slot, out of the backfield running routes, and he catches the ball, he's even more electric. He's even more dangerous. And for years, I talked about with this Saints team that they threw the ball too damn much. They lacked balance. They put too much pressure on Drew Brees, and they lacked a physical identity. And until they got that, they were never going to be anything other than a mediocre team. Well, they got that in 2017, and everything else kind of fell into place. Michael Thomas, the former second-round pick out of Ohio State, had a great year in year number 2, another 1,000-plus yard receiving season. I mean, he was great as their number 1. And when you look at Drew Brees, it's crazy. He had the fewest attempts and fewest passing yards in a season since 2009. Ironically enough, that's the season that the Saints won it all. But he also had a career-high completion percentage. What was he at, like 72%? 72%! So what happened was that ability to run the football consistently, no matter whether it was Ingram in the game or Kamara in the game. The ability to get big plays out of the passing game when you needed them with Michael Thomas or Kamara and Ingram took so much of the pressure off of Drew Brees, helped balance out the offense, give this team a much more physical identity, and just really changed the entire landscape. And you got a great year out of Drew Brees, even though it was only like 23 touchdown passes and 8 interceptions. If you got that out of your quarterback every year with 4,300 or so passing yards, you'd feel really, really good about yourself. And that was the key, because what that allowed this team to do, take that young defense that is a recent influx of talent with a guy like a Cameron Jordan already in the fold who's an absolute stud, but you bring in guys like Marshawn Lattimore in the first round, Marcus Williams in the second round. Now you've got an improved, young, fast defense, and you're limiting the amount of time that they're on the field, so you keep them fresher, which means they are more athletic, more explosive, and more likely to make big plays. But it all started with the running game. It all started with the ability to balance out the offensive side of the football. It opened up more things for Michael Thomas. It made life much, much easier for Drew Brees, and therefore, as a result, made life much easier for the defense. It is amazing to me with the devaluation of the running back over the past few years to where now you're going to see maybe a little bit of a shift back to it's more important than ever to run the football because the teams that can run the football in the fourth quarter, in those big situations, that can balance out their offense, are going to be really, really hard to stop. So the Saints win their division. Again, I don't know how many people saw it coming. I'm sure some did, but I know I most certainly did not, and I know I most certainly was not alone. Then you get the wild card game, the home game against the Panthers, and they beat the Panthers for the third time in 2017. That's 3 victories over a team. Not always the toughest thing to do because they just were a bad matchup for the Panthers. They were too balanced and too complete as a football team. But for a team that hadn't been to the playoffs since 2013, it was nice to see him get back and win a playoff game and then go up to Minnesota in the divisional round where they played like crap in the first half. They were down 17-0. The defense wasn't great. The offense did absolutely bupkis. And all of a sudden, here comes Drew Brees. Here come the New Orleans Saints. Watch out now. And you're looking at it and you're saying, this might be a team that could go to the Super Bowl. This might be a team that could go into a Philly and beat the Eagles. This team has a lot of the ingredients of being a championship contending type of team. And it's crazy as you're thinking about it and the way the game breaks out, where the Vikings get a field goal with under 2 minutes to go, then the Saints move right down the field and they get into field goal range. You're like, the Vikings have a little bit of time left, but not much. They got to go quite a length of the field to get into field goal range without any timeouts. How are they going to pull this off? And you got the New Orleans Saints. They're so close. So close. And it's appropriate for Sean Payton. So close yet so far away. Triumph turns to heartbreak. And we all know what happened. Case Keenum throws deep to the right to Stephon Diggs. Marcus Williams whiffs on the hit. And Diggs all of a sudden realizes that he's got a clear path to the end zone. And the Vikings win. And the Saints' season is over. Just like that. And unfortunately, there was a lot of blame initially going around on Marcus Williams because he missed the tackle, which again, he deserves some blame because he effed up. He made a terrible play at the worst possible time. But football is a team game, and we see this a lot of times with the quarterback position, especially with certain quarterbacks. When their team plays well and they win, the quarterback seems to get all the credit. It's all because of him, and he couldn't do it without him. But when the team loses, we make so many excuses for how it was everybody else's fault other than his. And it's not to say that the quarterback should get all of the blame, just like they should not get all of the credit. But in this case, I look at it and I say, how can you just specifically blame Marcus Williams when you look at some of the decisions made throughout the game? Furthermore, you're talking about an offense that scored 0 points in the first half. Maybe if the Saints offense showed up a little bit in the first half, it wouldn't have been an issue. It wouldn't have been a factor. You never gotten to that point. Maybe the offense shouldn't have left a little bit of time on the clock for the Vikings to even be in that position. It's a tough loss. It's a heartbreaking loss. And it's unfortunate for a young kid like Marcus Williams, who was a big reason why this team was even in that position to begin with, that could very well be the signature play of his career. And that sucks. And I hope Saints fans understand that it was more than just that one play, that one mistake that cost them that game. And ultimately, it really was a surprise season. Because who the hell would have thought the Saints would have been that close to the NFC Championship game? And now you look at them, heading into the offseason, coming off of that devastating, heartbreaking loss. Where do they go from here? They've got a little bit of salary cap space. And to the credit of the organization, they've done a good job in the past couple of years clearing out some cap, getting to a point where they could have a little bit of flexibility like they do now. You've got about $34 million in cap space. Now we all know what that means. Drew Brees is a free agent. They're going to have to pay him. And here is my simple thought. I realize the guy is pushing 40. I realize you're going to wonder how many more seasons you can get out of him. But I've talked about this before, and I will continue to talk about it. Even more so than Tom Brady. even more so than Tom Brady. Drew Brees has earned the right to be the New Orleans Saints starting quarterback for as long as he chooses, and the organization best not do anything to screw that up. Because for the most part, outside of a couple of the Jim Moore years, the frank matter is this team hasn't mattered before Drew Brees, and they may not matter after him. And because of what he meant to that organization, to that city, to the league, yeah, he's earned that right to say, if I want to play 3, 4, 5 more years, then you've got to go with that, because based off of what you saw in 2017, he probably has a few more years left in him. And for Saints fans, I think they'd be perfectly fine with Drew Brees being back in 2018. You don't want to see your first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback leave any sooner than he absolutely has to. And in a lot of ways, Drew Brees, during his time in New Orleans, has been the epitome of a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback for the success he's brought to that organization, what he's meant to them. I mean, is there any doubt that they will re-sign Drew Brees? Absolutely not. You do whatever you can. Whether it's on a 1-year deal, 2-year deal, 3-year deal, I don't know. Maybe it's 2, but you pay the man and you move the hell on. Because where you look at this team right now, even though they didn't get to the NFC Championship game, even though they didn't represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, they had a lot of the ingredients that indicate that they could have. And in a lot of places, this is a young team. Once you look past the fact that their quarterback's going to be like 40 years old in 2018, this is a young team. Michael Thomas is only going to be going into his 3rd year. Even when you look at Mark Ingram, he was back from that 2011 draft, so I don't even think he's broaching 30 yet. Kamara is in his 2nd year. You look defensively, Cameron Jordan was in that, he was in that 2011 draft, wasn't he? Yeah, something like that. So he's not that old. You got Sheldon Rankins inside. Maybe you can get more out of him. Lattimore, Williams, they're in their 2nd year. A lot of their studs are very young. Plenty of the pieces on that offensive line, the Armsteads, the Ramczyks, are pretty young. This team has a nice young core and a nice young nucleus, and I have to give credit to Mickey Loomis and that Saints front office, because when you look at this, you say, okay, this is a team that is built to win and win now, whereas a couple of years ago they looked like a joke. And I apologize, I think it was Mark Ingram was 2010. Anyways, who gives a crap? But you look at it and you say, this team is close, and they are close. But that window of opportunity is small. So it's like, on the one hand, they are there, they could do it, but they got to get it done soon. So looking ahead to the NFL draft, they've got picks in rounds 1, 3, 4, 2 in the 5th, a 6th, and the 7th as of right now. Their first round pick is 27th overall. What do they need? I feel like they need to upgrade the linebacking core on defense, specifically outside. I look at the defensive line, and I feel like they could use a little bit more beef up the middle. Because even though that defense improved significantly in 2017, I feel like that's in large part because the offense didn't turn the ball over as much, and the offense ran the ball with much more efficiency and proficiency and consistency. And that kind of helped make the Saints a middle-of-the-road defense. They were still not a great defense. They were middle-of-the-road. But boy, were they so markedly improved compared to previous years. But I feel like they still need to beef up that front 7 and get better there. And then offensively, I feel like they could use a number 2 wide receiver outside opposite Michael Thomas, because how long can you count on Ted Ginn? Brandon Coleman's a role player. Willie Snead is best in the slot situation. Then you look at tight end. Kobe Fleener really hasn't done much for them. They could use another young dynamic weapon there. A good thing for the Saints is if they largely strike out in the 2018 draft, drafting low and all of that, they could still be in a position to contend this upcoming season. But if they even get 1 guy, maybe 2 to contribute like they did out of this 2017 class with Lattimore, with Williams, with a guy like Kamara, then you look at guys like Hendrickson, you're talking about a team that's going to be right in the mix to contend to get to Super Bowl 53.